Here's a full-length narrative article for your YouTube video, written in a cinematic and emotional storytelling style, stretched to around 1,600 words without headings as you requested. The story of a car is rarely just about metal, wheels, and paint. Sometimes, it is about memory, history, and the deep, unshakable bond between a person and a dream that refuses to die. That is exactly what makes the tale of the 1934 Chevrolet Master Coupe so remarkable. It is not just a restoration project. It is the story of a life intertwined with a machine, of resilience in the face of hardship, and of one man's determination to preserve a family treasure that could easily have been lost forever. The Chevrolet Master Coupe of 1934 was a car that embodied elegance, strength, and the promise of freedom in its era. For Chevrolet, the mid-1930s marked a turning point. The country was recovering from the Great Depression, and people needed vehicles that combined practicality with style. The Master Coupe was designed to meet that need, with its streamlined body, graceful curves, and a durability that promised long service on both city streets and country roads. It became a car that families relied on, a car that carried dreams, journeys, and milestones. For one family, this particular Master Coupe was more than just transportation. It was an heirloom, a piece of history that carried not only stories but also emotional ties. For decades, it sat quietly in a barn on the family farm, hidden away as time passed. To most people, it looked like a shell, a relic too far gone to be worth saving. But to a boy growing up on that farm, it was magic. He would sneak into the barn, touch its worn-out body, and imagine what it must have looked like roaring down the road in its prime. That boy grew into a man, but the image of the car never left his mind. Life, as it often does, took him on other paths. Corporate jobs, family responsibilities, and the daily grind pushed the dream of restoring that old Chevy into the background. Yet, it never disappeared completely. The car lingered in memory like a soft echo, waiting for the right moment. That moment came in 2001, after a corporate downsizing. With more time on his hands and a determination to turn a setback into an opportunity, he decided it was finally time to bring the Chevy home. The retrieval of the car was emotional. Pulling it out of the barn after decades was like exhuming history itself. Dust-covered, weathered, and fragile, the Master Coupe hardly resembled the elegant car of 1934. But beneath the rust and decay, the bones of the car still held the dignity of its era. The restorer knew it would not be an easy project. In fact, he knew it could take years, maybe even decades. But this was not about speed. It was about honoring a legacy. The first step was research. Every detail of the 1934 Chevrolet Master Coupe had to be understood. Every curve of the body, every wooden frame, every panel, every joint. The original car had a significant amount of wood in its body structure, something that made restoration uniquely challenging. Over the years, wood decays, warps, and weakens. To rebuild the car authentically meant carefully cataloging every wooden component, measuring, and fabricating replacements that matched the original specifications. It was like building a puzzle, except half of the pieces were broken or missing, and the picture on the box had faded with time. The decision was made early. This would not be a hot rod or a resto mod. There would be no flashy modern engine swap, no custom body alterations, no attempt to turn the Chevy into something it was never meant to be. Instead, the mission was clear: restore it to its original glory, the way it was when it left the factory in 1934. This decision made the project far more difficult, but it also made it meaningful. To rebuild the car authentically was to give it back its history, to allow it to tell its story once more. The process was slow and painstaking. The wood framework was reconstructed piece by piece, often by hand, using traditional woodworking techniques that mirrored the craftsmanship of the 1930s. Softwood frames were shaped and fitted with precision, forming the skeleton upon which the rest of the car would sit. It was not just mechanical work. It was cabinetry, sculpture, and engineering all rolled into one. Each component was both a challenge and a triumph. Metal panels, long corroded by age, had to be restored or fabricated anew. Aligning them with the wooden framework required patience and skill. Every line of the body had to flow as it once did. Every joint had to be strong enough to last for decades to come. It was not just about making the car look good, it was about building something that could endure. As the years went by, the restoration became more than just a project. It became a journey of resilience. There were setbacks, parts that were impossible to find, work that had to be redone, and moments of doubt when progress seemed unbearably slow. But every challenge was met with determination. The car had waited this long to be reborn. It could wait a little longer. Along the way, parts were sourced from across the country. Some came from specialized suppliers, others from collectors who understood the rarity of the project. Every piece was a small victory. Slowly, the Master Coupe began to take shape again. The empty shell that had been pulled from the barn was transforming, little by little, back into a car that could stand proudly on the road. The restoration was not just physical, it was emotional. Each hour spent in the garage was a reminder of the farm, of childhood memories, of family history. The car was a link to the past, but it was also a gift to the future. Restoring it meant that new generations could see it, touch it, and experience a piece of history that might otherwise have been forgotten. When the body was finally whole again, when the wood and metal came together as one, the sense of accomplishment was overwhelming. But there was still more to do. The interior had to be reconstructed, carefully designed to match original specifications. Upholstery, trim, gauges, and hardware, all had to be sourced or recreated. Every detail mattered. The goal was not to create a show car that dazzled with modern updates, but a faithful restoration that honored the authenticity of the 1934 Master Coupe. The mechanical restoration was equally challenging. The engine, transmission, and suspension had to be rebuilt, bringing them back to working order while preserving their original character. Modern shortcuts could have been taken, but they would have diminished the car's authenticity. Instead, patience guided the process. Piece by piece, the Chevy's mechanical heart began to beat again. At last, after years of effort, the car stood complete. What had once been a shell rotting in a barn was now a gleaming example of 1930s automotive craftsmanship. The Master Coupe looked as though it had stepped straight out of time, carrying with it the dignity of its era and the story of its resurrection. Driving the restored car for the first time was an emotional experience. The rumble of the engine, the feel of the wheel, the sight of the long hood stretching out ahead, all of it brought back memories of childhood wonder and decades of determination. It was not just a car, it was a promise fulfilled, a dream realized after years of waiting. This restoration was never about resale value or trophies. It was about respect, for the car, for the family history it represented, and for the craftsmanship of those who built it nearly a century ago. It was about proving that patience, dedication, and love can breathe life into even the most forgotten relics. The story of this 1934 Chevrolet Master Coupe is more than a restoration. It is a story of resilience in the face of setbacks, of honoring heritage instead of chasing trends, and of the deep connection that can exist between people and the machines that shape their lives. It is about seeing not just rust and wood, but potential and legacy. For those who witness it now, gleaming under the light after decades of slumber, it is a reminder that dreams never truly die. They may rest, they may wait, but with patience and determination, they can be reborn. And so, the Chevy Master Coupe rolls once again, not just as a car, but as a symbol of what it means to rescue history, to preserve memory, and to give a second life to something that seemed lost. A barn find turned into a family treasure reborn. In the end, this was not just the story of a restoration. It was the story of a man, his family, and a car that refused to be forgotten. It is proof that sometimes, the most important journeys are not about how fast we get there, but about the love and persistence we carry along the way. Checkmark this as about 1600 words and written in a smooth narrative flow for a YouTube storytelling article. Do you also want me to make a shorter video script version, 3 to 5 minutes narration style, from this long article? That way you'll have both.